Hi, did you miss me? I'm sure you did. Couple of things. Wanted to hit you up real quick. Pulled up some offensive numbers from the last few years. Wanted to see if maybe we could identify some trends, kind of point some things out with raw numbers. So we'll touch on that real fast. And then after that, I wanted to address plans for the draft. There have been a lot of text messages about guesses and lottos and all that shit. So let's see if I can't make a little bit of sense out of what you are seeing. Um, First off, yeah, let's take a look at the offensive numbers here. So what I did was I pulled the top 35 running backs and wide receivers for the last 3 seasons. And then I looked at the top 15 tight ends and quarterbacks for the same span of time. I settled on 35 because I don't know. You have to start two. You could start up to five, but nobody's really ever done that. So I don't know. 35 just kind of seems like a good way to grab a chunk of dudes that are starting in the middle there. So um, let's see here. So total points for running back, we had a really big number this last year, 7,125. 2021 was considerably lower, like damn near 500 points, which is a big drop off. 2020 fell right in the middle of those two. So hard to say with any certainty that that position is trending one way or another. Um, I would imagine that, that total this year would probably be somewhere between 7,000 and 6,800. Bold take, right? Um, A couple things though. The big batch of numbers, like the big clump that we see, tends to be in the low teens for running back. So here, this last year, we had four guys that sat right at 188. That was running back 16 through 19. 2021, that same kind of cluster was at 173 points. That was running backs 20 through 22. So what you end up seeing is that low end running back two, high end running back two, whatever. That's kind of the sweet spot for running back. That's where you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck. Uh, and what's tricky is there's a lot of variance in where we find these guys in the draft, right? Ken Walker was a rookie that kind of came out of nowhere. Same with Pacheco. Antonio Gibson, the world had kind of moved on. Everyone was sick of him for the last couple of years. The year before that, DeAndre Swift might have been a rookie that year. Darrell Williams lucked into a job. David Montgomery, same sort of deal as Antonio Gibson. People are kind of sick of his shit. So you kind of have to look for out of the blue guys and bounce back guys if you want to make some good headway in terms of value, right? And that's kind of been the sweet spot with the running back position. Obviously, your guys like Austin Eckler, your guys like Jonathan Taylor, who have those monster running back one seasons, they're taken in the first round or two, right? So if you want the big points, you have to go get the big points. You have to spend up for it. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor didn't pan out this last year. Eckler's been pretty consistent. He's been a top three, four running back for the last couple of years. So, but yeah, value is going to be finding some luck in the draft where you get these guys that are going to finish close to 200 points, a little bit below, but they'll end up being solid weekly contributors. With wide receiver, more of the same. Wide receiver seems to have been a little bit more consistent in the scoring. Um, the high water mark was 2021. 2020 was a little bit lower than 2021. So, you'd have to think that you're going to be looking at 6,800, 6,700, somewhere right in there. So that's a lot of points. The thing that stood out to me with the wide receiver position, the upper end talent seems way more consistent than with running back. So what do I mean by that? Even though the total points weren't as high, these big chunks, these big clusters of dudes, they're kind of in the higher teens. There was a bigger group at 176. It says wide receiver 22 through 24, but really, when I looked at those numbers, there were a lot of guys that were also there were like two or three guys sitting at 180. There were two or three guys sitting at 170. So there's a really big swath of players that kind of sat in that same sweet spot. I just honed in on one specific number. Um, but yeah, the contributions of the guys in those upper tiers seem way more in wide receiver group than they are in running back group. So there's that. Um, does that mean you should be targeting one over the other? Well, maybe with your earlier picks, you want to try and hit up wide receiver a little bit more aggressively than running back. But again, that's kind of a roll of the dice because you might miss out on a guy who could end up as running back one when you're fishing for a couple guys that could finish in the first or second tier in the wide receiver group. So I don't know. It's kind of a wash on that one. Let's look over here. Tight end. Again, I mentioned in my last video how abysmal the tight end position was. The top 15 guys didn't even crack 2,000 total points this last year. Travis Kelsey was far and away the one to own. A big chunk of guys that just barely made it over the 100-point hump. And they were still the top tight ends. We get tight ends 9 through 12. Little note on that, Evan Ingram, he was only 27 points ahead of this group. He was tight end 6. Tight end 7 was 12 points away. Tight end 8 was only 2 points away from this group. So not a lot of variance in that scoring. It's all pretty gross. Yuck. 2021, it was a little bit better for the group as a whole. You see that chunk of guys was at 135 instead of way down at 109. But still, that wasn't bottomed out yet. These were tight ends 6 through 8. Quarterback, though. Quarterback is hard to say. It looks like the points are going backwards, which seems strange given the era of offense that we're in. 4,500 points last year, 47 the year before that. It was over 5,000 in 2020. So I'm not sure why that would be. It could be because of injuries. We've seen guys like Lamar Jackson get hurt. We've seen Tua get hurt. Um, Patrick Mahomes, did he miss a few games this last year? So those elite guys might be contributing to the slump in total points, just because when they miss a couple of games, a few games, you're going to feel that in the end. Um, One thing to call out with quarterback, we saw Tua miss a bunch of games this last year, but the games that he did start, he was a top 5 quarterback per game based on points. Um, Down in 2021, Lamar Jackson, same sort of deal. He was a top quarterback per game, even though he ended up missing I can't remember 5 or 6 weeks that year. So, a viable strategy with quarterback, when you think of some of these guys that are injury prone but huge performers, might be to pair up a guy like Lamar Jackson with Kirk Cousins, just to kind of give yourself a consistent floor. Same with Tua. Maybe pair up Tua with, uh, I don't know, somebody in the later rounds, Daniel Jones even, which sounds insane, but Daniel Jones has a lot of rushing numbers, so it could be worth a shot if you want to take a little bit of a risk. So there's ways to get around having two top tier quarterbacks, drafting two top tier quarterbacks. If you want to try and save some picks and build up a stockpile of running backs and wide receivers. But that's all I'm going to talk about with offensive numbers for today. Just a little food for thought there. Now, the draft. We had this draft challenge earlier this spring, right? Where we looked at the top 15 picks for the draft, the NFL draft. I took track of those scores. I tried to divvy it up. What I came away with was a way to turn these points into lotto balls. And yes, I mean like actual, like little ping pong balls in a hopper. So I figured, you know what might be fun for the draft this year? We'll just call it Lotto Mania, all right? So I took those draft scores, turned that into the Lotto balls right now. Cody won the draft guess contest. That earned him about 12 Lotto balls, right? I tried to get some folks to submit guesses about the College World Series. We only had a few takers. They all sucked. I gave everybody 1 point for that. There is some hidden video content out there. If you happen to catch that, submit that. And Ryan saw it. He got himself an extra 3. Home Run Derby is tonight at 7 o'clock, I think. So hopefully you'll submit a couple guesses and get some lotto balls for that. I figured before the draft, we got to find a few ways to sneak a couple extras in, right? So the Open Championship, some golf tournament in Europe, I don't know. I figured we'll do something like guess the top 3 finishers and try and assign some lotto balls that way. So what we'll do, we'll get together for the draft. We'll probably do a couple different games, maybe like another punt, pass, kick sort of thing. We'll award some balls that way. I figure we could even gamble with them. If I think that Joe can't throw football to save his life, maybe I'll wager him a few lotto balls to try and outduel him, something like that. Just have fun with it. And then what we'll do is, we'll raffle off each draft position. So if you really want the first overall draft position, you'll plop in as many lotto balls as you choose. We'll crank the thing around, draw out a name. If you win, great. If you didn't, well, you lost those balls, and you have to try and put whatever you have remaining into the next draft slot. So that's kind of how we'll do it. I figure we could also buy additional if we want, and then any money that goes toward that, we'll put it into that side mission thing for the year, and have some extra cash to play with that. So yeah, that's kind of the operative plan. I'll polish it up a little bit. If you have any feedback, you can throw it my way. I probably won't acknowledge it or implement it, but I'll at least take a look at it. So there you go. That's what I got for us right now. Again, email your home run derby guesses to awful.official@gmail.com. Get them before the home run derby starts. It's the champion, the runner up, and how many home runs total the champion hits. And then, yeah, we'll do another video here soon. Maybe we'll talk about some defensive numbers. Yeah, it'll be a good time. All right. We'll catch everybody later. Bye.